Have you ever thought you knew everything about your family, only to discover a hidden secret? One chilly evening, my family gathered for our weekly dinner. We laughed and shared stories over a delicious homemade meal. As we sat around the table, my younger sister Mia seemed unusually quiet. After a few rounds of banter, our parents asked her what was on her mind. Mia took a deep breath and said, "I have something to share with you all." The room fell silent, and I felt a rush of curiosity. "I've been thinking about doing a DNA test," she announced. "I want to explore our ancestry and learn more about our family history." Our parents exchanged glances, clearly surprised. "That's a great idea, Mia. It can be really eye-opening," Dad replied. I nodded in agreement, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her announcement. Days later, Mia received her DNA results and called us for a family meeting. We gathered around the living room, and she excitedly shared the findings. As she read through the report, her expression changed from excitement to confusion. "It says I have a relative in the system. Someone I didn't know about," she said. My heart raced. We all sat in stunned silence as Mia explained that the match was someone named Uncle Joe. The name rang a bell. He was our dad's estranged brother. Dad had always told us stories about Joe, but never mentioned that he had reconnected with him. Mia suggested we reach out to Uncle Joe and see if he'd be willing to meet. Hesitant but curious, Dad agreed. The following weekend, we arranged a meeting at a local cafe. When Uncle Joe walked in, I could see the family resemblance immediately. The conversation flowed easily as we shared stories and learned more about each other. Uncle Joe spoke about his life and why he had distanced himself from the family. What began as a hidden secret turned into a beautiful reunion. We all embraced, realizing that sometimes family bonds can be rediscovered, no matter how far apart they may seem. In the end, exploring our family history brought us closer together and helped us reconnect with a long-lost relative. Have you ever gone camping and ended up with a story that still makes you laugh? Let me take you back to a camping trip that turned into an unexpected adventure. My friends and I decided to go camping in the great outdoors for the first time. We packed our bags with all the essentials: tents, sleeping bags, snacks, and, of course, a ton of marshmallows for roasting. I was excited and a little nervous, as I had never really camped before. We arrived at the campsite, and after setting up our tents, we gathered around the fire to roast marshmallows. Everything was going smoothly until my friend Dave had a brilliant idea. Let's explore the nearby forest and look for a secret waterfall. Feeling adventurous, we followed him deep into the woods. The trail was beautiful, and we were joking and laughing. But as we ventured further, we quickly lost track of where we were. Suddenly, I realized we were surrounded by trees and had no idea which way to go back. After wandering for what felt like ages, we stumbled upon a clearing. To our horror, we realized we had somehow ended up at a family reunion picnic. They were all seated at long tables, enjoying their food, and we were standing there like lost puppies in our camping gear. As we awkwardly stood there, a lovely grandma approached us, eyes twinkling. "You look like you could use a meal. Come on over." We hesitated but eventually decided to join them. The food was incredible, and they welcomed us like we were part of the family. We shared stories of our camping trip, and they regaled us with tales of their own mishaps. We laughed, feasted on homemade pies, and for a moment, it felt like we were all one big family. When we finally left, they even sent us off with a plate of leftovers. Complete strangers turned friends in one unforgettable afternoon. So, if you ever get lost in the woods, just remember, sometimes you might end up finding an unexpected feast and new friends along the way. Ever had a moment at the gym that made you question your life choices? I definitely did. And it involved a treadmill and a lot of unintentional comedy. I had decided to get serious about my fitness, so I joined a local gym. Excited to start my new journey, I waltzed in with my new workout gear, feeling like a superstar. I confidently walked up to the treadmill, ready to crush my workout. As I stepped onto the treadmill, I made a rookie mistake. I forgot to set the speed. I hit the start button, and suddenly, the treadmill sprang to life like it was trying to escape. I wasn't prepared for the jolt, and before I knew it, I was thrown into a full sprint. Clumsily, I might add. In my panic, I tried to regain my balance. My arms flailed like a windmill, and I had this absurd mix of fear and adrenaline coursing through me. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the gym on me, and I just knew they were witnessing my gym debut gone wrong. Desperate to stop the madness, I fumbled around to find the emergency stop button, but in my flailing, I somehow managed to increase the speed instead. It felt like I was auditioning for an Olympic sprint, and I could hear people giggling as I tried to keep up. After what felt like an eternity, I finally managed to hit the stop button, but not before I'd garnered a small audience. I stepped off the treadmill, cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and the kind-hearted trainer came over to reassure me. "Hey, we've all been there," he said, laughing. "Just start slow next time." To my surprise, the mishap broke the ice, and a few other gym goers came over to share their own hilarious gym stories. We all laughed together, and suddenly, my embarrassing moment turned into a bonding experience. So if you ever find yourself in an awkward gym moment, remember we're all just trying to figure it out, and laughter is the best workout of all. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you accidentally became the star of a show? Let me tell you about the day I unintentionally led a parade of pets. It all started on a sunny Saturday morning when I decided to take my dog, Buddy, for a walk. He's a golden retriever with more energy than a toddler on a sugar high. As soon as I opened the door, he darted out like a rocket, pulling me along as I struggled to keep up. We strolled through the neighborhood, and it seemed like a perfectly normal day until we reached the park. That's where Buddy spotted a squirrel and took off like a shot. I held on for dear life, running behind him as he barked excitedly, completely ignoring my shouts. As we entered the park, I noticed other dogs being walked by their owners. I was too busy trying to catch Buddy to pay much attention. But as Buddy chased after the squirrel, he inadvertently gathered a group of other dogs along the way. It was like a scene from a cartoon, dogs of all shapes and sizes running after my little golden retriever. Suddenly, it became a full-blown pet parade. The other dogs started barking and joining in, and before I knew it, I was the reluctant leader of this motley crew, tugging on Buddy's leash. People at the park began laughing and cheering us on as we ran in circles, with dogs leaping and bounding all around. In an attempt to regain control, I finally managed to catch Buddy and called out to the other owners, "Hey, we should turn this into a dog show." The idea took off, and what started as an accidental parade turned into a spontaneous pet talent show. Owners lined their dogs up, and we all took turns showcasing their unique skills, like rolling over, playing dead, and even a few dance moves. As I stood there, with Buddy proudly wagging his tail and showing off, I couldn't help but laugh. We turned what could have been a chaotic moment into an afternoon of fun and laughter, bonding over our furry friends. So, next time you're faced with a chaotic moment, remember that sometimes the best adventures happen when you least expect them. Who knew a simple walk could turn into a dog show? Have you ever tried to impress someone with your cooking skills, only to end up creating a kitchen disaster? Well, let me take you back to the time I attempted to bake a cake for my best friend's birthday, and it turned into a scene straight out of a comedy. I was super excited to celebrate Sarah's birthday. We had been friends for years, and I wanted to make this year special. So, I thought, what better way to show my love than to bake her favorite chocolate cake? I had watched enough cooking shows to feel confident. How hard could it be? I gathered all the ingredients: flour, sugar, cocoa powder, eggs, and, of course, sprinkles. I even bought a cute cake pan in the shape of a star because, well, Sarah was a star in my life. I put on my apron and cranked up some tunes to get into the baking mood. The first few steps went surprisingly well. I mixed the dry ingredients, then added the wet ones, feeling like a master chef. But when it came time to bake, I didn't check the oven temperature properly. I set it to 350 degrees, but I forgot to preheat it. Instead of waiting, I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Spoiler alert, a lot. After about 30 minutes, I opened the oven to check on my masterpiece, and to my horror, it looked like a deflated balloon. The center was sunken, and it was lopsided, more of a pancake than a cake. I panicked. How could I show up to Sarah's birthday party with this disaster? I quickly decided to rescue the situation. I turned to my trusty old friend, frosting. If I slather enough frosting on it, maybe it would hide the mistakes. So, I whipped up a batch of frosting that could rival any bakery's. It was rich, chocolatey, and oh so delicious. With the frosting applied, I decorated the top with sprinkles, hoping to distract everyone from the cake's unfortunate shape. But as I was setting the cake on the table, disaster struck again. I knocked over the whole thing. The cake splatted onto the floor like a defeated athlete after a big game. At this point, I was ready to give up, but I had a spark of inspiration. I grabbed the remaining frosting and started to create cake art on the floor. I made little smiley faces and hearts, turning my disaster into a hilarious masterpiece. When Sarah arrived, she was taken aback by the cake on the floor, and we both burst out laughing. So, if you ever find yourself in a cooking catastrophe, remember sometimes the biggest messes can turn into the most memorable moments. And trust me, that birthday party is one we'll never forget. Ever had one of those days where it feels like the universe is playing tricks on you? Well, this morning, it was my turn. You'd think finding a car key wouldn't be a big deal, but somehow, I ended up in the world's most frustrating hide-and-seek game with myself. I was running late for a big meeting, the kind that you know you need to show up to early so you don't look frazzled. But naturally, I was already borderline panicking. My morning had already been a mess. My alarm didn't go off, my phone battery was at 5%, and I accidentally put salt in my coffee instead of sugar. Yes, it was that kind of morning. After slamming down the salty coffee and deciding I'd deal with caffeine deprivation, I grabbed my bag and coat, did a final check in the mirror, and reached for my car key, only to find that it wasn't there. I had left it right on the counter, hadn't I? I thought maybe I'd absent-mindedly placed it somewhere else, but a quick scan of the usual spots, my coat pockets, the counter, my desk, showed it wasn't there. All right, no big deal, right? I mean, it's just a key, and I was already running a little behind. But 5 minutes turned into 10, and 10 turned into a full-on hunt. At this point, I was practically tearing the place apart. I even found myself peering into places that made absolutely no sense. The fridge? Yes, I checked in there. The bathroom? Somehow, I thought maybe I'd taken it with me when I brushed my teeth. You know when you start questioning your sanity? That was me, opening up every drawer, cupboard, and bag in the entire house. About 20 minutes in, I started losing hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe I'd never make it to that meeting, and I'd become that one person whose life unraveled over a missing car key. Just as I was about to give up, I stopped to catch my breath, hands on my hips. That's when I suddenly felt a lump in my pocket. In a moment of disbelief, I slowly reached down and, like the world's worst magician, pulled the key out of my pocket. My jaw dropped, and I couldn't help but burst out laughing. After all that, I had been carrying it the entire time. I laughed so hard I nearly cried, partly out of embarrassment, partly out of pure relief. Needless to say, I made it to my meeting, but not without a lingering feeling that life had just played a practical joke on me. And you know what? I'm glad it did. I learned that sometimes, when we're frantically searching for what we think we're missing, the answer's actually been right there all along. Ever had one of those moments where you're looking everywhere for something, only to realize you've been holding it the whole time? Sometimes it's life's way of reminding us to slow down and laugh at ourselves a little more.